The Oshawa Museum is the only museum dedicated to telling the history of our city. With a collection of more than 50,000 objects and archival records, it preserves and promotes awareness and appreciation of our past. Our collection is stored in 3 historic homes and a drive shed that make up the Oshawa Museum. In November of 2016, the Canadian Conservation Institute conducted an assessment and review of our museum facilities, with an emphasis on storage and display, and recommendations were made regarding the design of a new purpose-built facility for collection storage, exhibitions, event space, visitor services, and staff functions. We use every available space to store our collections. In Henry House, we use the attic that has a narrow and steep set of stairs and 2 smaller rooms that are on the main floor. We also use the basement. Every cupboard and drawer furniture that is on display, including the dry sink in the kitchen, is filled with our community's treasures. In Robinson House, the attic and basement are also used for storage, as well as a small room on the main floor, which is home to our education collection. This space also contains a washing machine, dryer, and wash tub. The basement at Robinson House contains a water tank, sub pump, oil tank, and furnace, all of which risk damaging valuable artifacts in our collection. Spaces for artifact storage are crowded, despite creative installation and use of all available space. An example of this would be our custom shelving, which houses our camera collection. It contains over 400 cameras and accessories that came from a long-standing business here in Oshawa called Bernie's Cameras. As you can see, most drawers, shelves, and boxes are full. What problems do we experience here at the Oshawa Museum? Small rooms, narrow staircases, all pose problems for the safety of our staff and for our collection. It's important to remember that these buildings were designed as family homes and were not meant to be museum facilities. Nevertheless, they have become a beautiful backdrop to display Oshawa's rich history. The buildings are poorly configured for the storage of the collection and movement of artifacts. In Robinson House, heavier furniture and objects are consigned to the less than ideal basement storage. Horizontal beams and ductwork limit basement ceiling clearance to well under 7 feet in most areas. These steep stairs should really have a railing for personal safety, but due to the space being so tight, we wouldn't be able to move artifacts up and down as easily. Smaller items at Robinson House are stored in the attic, where the ceiling clearance is only 7 feet. It's accessed by 2 flights of stairs and a hatch door. In Henry House, the upper floor or attic is where we store our textile collection. This includes clothing, shoes, hats, our extensive quilt collection, and accessories. Dense storage complicates access to the artifacts. It also increases the risk of damage to the collection. In Guy House, although the archive storage looks professional, movement is extremely restrictive because of the tight spacing of the storage units. The shelving in Henry House and Robinson House is so tight up to the ceiling that it makes moving items safely a real concern. Multiple buildings with limited vehicle access hamper collections management and exhibition development. Another challenge of having our collection stored in 3 separate buildings, none of which have loading docks or paved pathways, is that we have to plan movement of items only when the weather cooperates. Otherwise, we risk damaging them. Icy or wet pathways are very restrictive and can be a hazard to staff and the collection. Limited archival research space also results in the unnecessary handling of records. The process of bringing an item into the collection includes acquiring the donated item, document the item, photograph, digitize, and enter the information into our database. The artifact is then placed into storage according to standards that are set by the Ministry of Tourism, Culture, and Sport. Currently, all of this is done on one small table, which is also the area that researchers use. We require a proper space that is separate from public spaces for the movement of artifacts through the collection management process. Museum programming lacks adequate space to meet demand. We've actually had to turn groups away. Efficiently run museums have defined spaces to receive visitors. A space to host workshops, events, and lectures would allow us to host group tours without limiting them to a few people at a time. Currently, we host larger events such as exhibit openings outside, but if the weather is bad, we have no backup indoor facilities to prevent last-minute cancellations. High visitor numbers in small spaces also put the collection at risk for damage. Due to lack of space, our popular monthly speaker series has to be hosted off-site, which means paying out rental fees that could be used for the museum itself. We are at capacity. That means we are limited in what we can accept into the collection at this time. So what's the solution? A purpose-designed collection space in a new facility. In order to meet our mandate and to continue collecting and preserving Oshawa's heritage, the Oshawa Museum is in need of a new building with a purpose-designed space for storage and display of collections. This space would consolidate the collections into one facility and allow for growth, increase fire protection and security, provide pest-resistant collection spaces, limit light exposure, and provide an environmentally controlled space for the storage of our collections. Included in this space would be a dedicated collection work area for processing new acquisitions, photographing objects, and preparing exhibitions. A lecture and event space will round out the services we offer and make the Oshawa Museum a thriving place with a bright future for everyone to come and discover our city's heritage.